Ain't nothing better than a late-night Montreal Canadiens video. Let's head over to what Elliotte Friedman said on a recent edition of The Jeff Marek Show and go over the first overall pick of the 2022 NHL Entry Draft, Juraj Slafkovsky. Now, the thing is, when it comes to Slav, there have been so many videos that we've made just on this channel in and of itself about games that he has had, performances, how well he's played, etc., etc. We've talked about the good, the bad, the ugly with Juraj Slafkovsky, and there's a pretty big grab bag of conversations going around about this guy. But when it comes to this idea, we've kind of made a few comments about it here and there, but never really made a direct video addressing this. So this is what Friedman said on a recent edition of The Jeff Marek Show. There was a post made on the Canadiens subreddit by GoHabsGo31 that kind of summarizes it, or not summarizes it, it directly quotes what Friedman ended up saying. He's talking about the Shane Gostisbehere hit on Slafkovsky from a few nights ago. What it says to me, Friedman said, is that when I saw that hit last night, the word is out there that you can hit this guy. Everybody knows it. He, Gostisbehere, recognizes who is on the ice, that this is a guy in Slafkovsky who puts himself into situations where he can get hit. And he goes for it. And that's not something he, Gostisbehere, does a lot, but he goes for it. The book is out there that you can hit this guy, because he's not looking. And that, in and of itself, is arguably the biggest lesson, I feel, that Juraj Slafkovsky is going to have to internalize from this season's worth of play alone. Not how fast he can be against NHL competition, not how to make plays or beat NHL goaltenders. We know he's got a shot. We know he's got good skating, good mobility. We know he's pretty good at doing a lot of these things at a fundamental level. It's why he's in the NHL in the first place. It's just, when it comes to being able to recognize physicality in the National Hockey League, that, in and of itself, is arguably more important than everything else that he has taken to heart at this stage of his career. Let's go over a few comments made by Habs fans on this same post. BC Grappler says his head was up and his weight was back. He avoided taking heavy contact from Gostisbehere. Guys get hit, and this was a vast improvement from earlier. Now, earlier, of course, he's talking about the Luke Schenn hit, he's talking about the Marco Rossi hit, plays where Juraj Slafkovsky has his head down and gets absolutely leveled out. But this is just a talking point for the sake of talking about this as a talking point, BC Grappler says. What Slafkovsky needs is a man's strength to go with his size. 2 years and his reverse hits will be beastly. Not worried unless he takes more head contact going forward. Getting hit is part of the game, and this was not like the others. Arkales then goes out there and says, it's intimidation. If word spreads that he is easy to hit, you know darn well everyone is going to go for the hit on him. There's very little movement right now, even if he is heads up on the play. He is being too nice about being hit, and it's coming across that he's intimidated by NHL-level players. Either the team defends him anytime he gets hit, or he defends himself with any means necessary. And this is a really interesting sort of response, I feel, to that type of conversation as to how Juraj Slafkovsky handles being hit, because we know that Slafkovsky's a cool dude, right? We know he's sort of that smiley guy, he has some pretty clever answers to interviews, he's a likable fellow, and when it comes to his on-ice viciousness, we haven't really seen him combat in that way to really stand up for himself whenever he gets laid out. And of course, when it comes to getting laid out in the first place, players get hit all the time. Yes, NHL players, NHL games, NHL body checking, it's how it goes. But when it comes to Slafkovsky, it has been quite the intriguing process so far, just noting how this guy specifically ends up being on the receiving end of multiple game-changing hits. So much to the point that earlier on, he was kind of getting hurt, it appeared. Here's another comment from Darth Lord Donkey that I think brings up a really good point too. This is good. If Juraj Slafkovsky is ever going to become the player he was drafted to be, he'll need to learn from situations like this. The physicality in the NHL is one of the biggest changes for European players, and that's primarily the reason why I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him in the AHL for a stint as he continues to become more comfortable in North America. And replying to this comment is another thread that I thought was interesting. If we're all worried about him getting smoked, I'm not sure if the AHL is the better place for him to be. If anything, it's nastier. I do agree that especially early in the year, he would have been better served down there, though. Supercrass says, yeah, every AHL team has a couple of guys who belong in the ECHL who will annihilate anyone who gives them the opportunity to do so. Slaf will get murdered in the AHL. And so, right now, I don't really think that the AHL is anything that I would consider for Juraj Slafkovsky, mostly because even though in the NHL he does have these moments where he gets taken out, you can't go out there and deny he's had some pretty good games the past little while here. Just good playmaking, good positioning, good facilitating, making sure that he's not causing turnovers, he's winning his board battles. Juraj Slafkovsky is a capable hockey player, and we've seen that a ton over the past few weeks. It's just, he's got to learn to keep his head up and put himself in better positions to not get hurt. Now, sure, Shane Gostisbehere is like 5'11 or whatever, so the specific example that Friedman brought up that's even igniting this video commentary in the first place, that may not be the best example, but still, Friedman brings up a good point. Shane Gostisbehere never goes out there and hits guys, so if Gostisbehere, of all people, is trying to lay out the body, then it probably means that he sees an opportunity to hit a guy who is very susceptible to being hit. Marco Rossi, might I remind you, yeah, the guy that took out Slafkovsky for a little bit in that Minnesota game, he's only 5'9". So, Uri, big 6'3", big 6'4", whatever he is, 240 pounds, if he's getting rocked around by a guy like Marco Rossi, then there's some work to be done there in terms of being able to handle yourself physically, not keeping your head down too much. We had seen the head up in the Gostisbehere situation, but he still kind of got rocked a little bit. But it's still there, you know? Like, obviously, it's been only like 30 games for the guy at the National Hockey League level, and he's got, for the foreseeable future at least a decade or more plus of NHL games to go. So there's going to be a lot of adjustment on the fly here in the early stages of Slafkovsky in his career, but at the end of the day, I don't think anybody should necessarily be worried. This is, however, still a very big lesson that the guy's going to have to internalize as he proceeds in his National Hockey League career, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Juraj Slafkovsky could be if he really maxes out to everything that he has been taught. Or, not been taught, but everything that he should be learning at this stage. If he goes out there and starts laying the smackdown on other NHL talents like, let's say Moritz Seider has been able to the past little while here, then that is going to be an absolute treat to watch, because boy oh boy, if he becomes an absolute wrecking ball, plus he's able to score points in the way that he is, then I feel like the NHL better watch out. You better not cry when Juraj Slafkovsky goes out there and knocks you down with a big reverse hit. You better not pout too, I'm telling you why, man. Alright, I'm gonna stop with this because it's kind of weird to do that, but talk to me in the comments either way all your thoughts about Juraj Slafkovsky and this conversation right here about him potentially learning the physical side of NHL hockey, plus the differences in how this game plays comparative to European games. He's got less space, he's got stronger guys, etc., etc., etc. It's a big list of things that you're going to probably pay attention to. But talk to the comments your thoughts about Uri in these developments. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.